Hello, all you beautiful people out there. I was not planning on coming live today, believe me. But there's some good news. It's not great news. It's just good news. Derek Chauvin has been found guilty on all 3 counts in George Floyd's death. Now, you may wonder why I didn't title this Derek Chauvin found guilty, but come on, people. Let's not forget who the victim is. The victim is George Floyd. I don't care what kind of a criminal record he had. The victim was George Floyd. And I'm not a radical that says we should defund the police. However, we do need to make radical changes within the police. And of course, this takes time. It's been going on way too long. And I understand that there is a fine line between enough force and excessive force, and that our police officers walk that fine line every day. I understand that. For all you law enforcement officers out there, I understand that you walk this fine line, and I appreciate you putting your lives on the line for our safety each and every day. And most law enforcement officers are good people with good hearts that have good reasons for doing what they do. It is the bad apples that spoil the whole bunch for the good ones. And when there is a bad apple, we've got to take it out. And that's exactly what we've done with Derek Chauvin. Now, you may or may not know, or you may have forgotten, so I'm going to give a recap. Back on Memorial Day, the police were called, the Minneapolis police were called to a convenience store because someone had tried to purchase something with a counterfeit $20 bill, and that somebody happened to be George Floyd. And so the police arrested him, and he was in handcuffs. This is online, people. You can find it. It is a live. Somebody took out their camera phone. Probably a lot of somebody's had the presence of mind to take out their camera phone and record it, which is probably the biggest reason why Chauvin was convicted. Anyway, it doesn't matter whether Floyd knew that the bill was counterfeit or not. I don't know if he did or not, and it really doesn't matter. Okay, but the point is, you've got a person, they've already cuffed him. He's already down on the ground. They've already cuffed him. Okay? And after the after he's on the ground, after they've already cuffed him, Chauvin shoves his knee into Floyd's neck for 12 minutes. Okay. People were yelling at him, yelling at Chauvin, take your knee off his neck. He needs to breathe. Floyd himself was saying, excuse me. Floyd himself was saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And in his dying moments, he was calling for his mama. Guys, it does not get any more heinous than this. He should have been convicted of first-degree murder, in my opinion. But he wasn't. He was convicted of second and third-degree murder. And I think first-degree manslaughter, something like that. The link is in the description. You can go read it. The point is, it shouldn't take the death of a man, or really the death of anybody, for us to look at our system and say something is broken. We have Chauvin's record from the police department. And what I want to know is why he was even a cop. You know, I mean, yeah, okay, I'll give him 3 strikes, you know, but he was written up time and time and time and time again. Why is this guy still a cop? It shouldn't happen. It just shouldn't. And we should not be here in America and other places too, because it's probably happening in other places. Soldier. I actually have a better idea for you. How about clicking that link? That should bring you in here. It shouldn't take a man dying. It just shouldn't. Okay? We needed to fix this in the 60s, and it didn't get fixed in the 60s. Things got a lot better. I will say that. I think. I can't say for sure. I wasn't even alive in the 60s. Hey, Soldier of Science.
Hi, Lisa. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well. You know, I think as well. It's probably it's an historic day, but at the same time, um, you know, it's honestly frustrating to watch our justice system. Um, you know, to where it even creates police forces where they feel it's necessary to abuse other humans that they feel is less than them. And even society in general, right?
You're
We,
right.
we can look at politics in general. And in most situations where we look at politics, we kind of go, oh, I shouldn't say politics, but if we look at a given crime event, for example, we go, hey, was that person on drugs? Was that person a drug dealer? And none of these events, even if that were true, play into whether they deserve to die at the hands of another human being. And
Exactly.
I think that's super unfortunate that we put a category on a life that is value. You know, what is the value of a life? Was this person going to make something of their life? Was this person going to be beneficial to humankind? And if we think that they're not, and they get arrested by the police, we automatically go, you know what, it's justified. That death is justified. And I think that is proof in the history of us not being able to prosecute bad policemen, in my opinion.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am totally against the death penalty. And it's not because, okay, first, first of all, this is going to sound, um, negative and not feeling and all that, but that person is gone forever, and
Right,
he is
right,
never coming back. And
right.
putting somebody else to death is not going to bring that person back. But another thing that I would like to point out is that um, how can we, as a society, say to an individual, you cannot commit murder when it is okay for the state to commit murder?
In all honesty, Lisa, I don't think anybody who ever commits murder factors that into the equation. I don't think that the death penalty is a deterrence for murder. And I think even if you take away the death penalty, your murder rates are probably going to be similar to what they are now because of other issues within how we structure our government and society.
Right.
So yeah, in all honesty, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think there should be a death penalty. Um, my caveat is in the situations where we have a justice system that has so many people in jail that we end up releasing people who would be likely murderers, for example. And we don't do anything about that. Like, we don't keep them in jail longer, or and maybe it's brute to say we didn't kill them to prevent them from killing someone else. Um, so no, I completely agree that I don't agree with a death penalty. But if I'm being honest to myself, it's probably more because of pragmatism. It's probably more because I don't think taxpayers should pay that much money for people to be in a system where they don't ever actually get killed. Uh, and there's probably an argument for someone who goes and murders 20 people with an AR-15, and you have them on video camera, and they did this, and you determine it was not a mentally ill person. There's probably an argument for that, but ultimately, I agree with you.
Well, and you were talking about the overpopulated prisons. I don't know where you live, but here in America, um, there's probably a reason for overpopulated prisons.
Well, yeah, that's what I was getting to. No, I live in America, and no, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, the
Yeah.
overpopulated prisons has to do with an unequal justice system, right? I mean, it
Well,
has to do
that,
it has to do
that
with
too.
yeah,
There are many more African Americans.
right,
They are overrepresented in the prison population. But even if we rule that out, we have many states have the three strikes law.
right.
And if people have no idea what I'm talking about,
I do.
the three strikes law is if you have um, if you are convicted of a third felony, you go away for life, no matter what your
Right,
felonies are.
right, right.
And that's just not that That's crazy.
Well, that, and we have unfair drug laws, which put people in different states for, having an ounce of marijuana on them, and they go to jail for 20 years. I mean, is ridiculous. I mean, I can go on and on about the unfair equal justice system, and including private prisons, which incentivize people to create prisons for profit, who then lobby local governments to support their police systems, to arrest people, to put them in the private prison systems. I could go on. I mean, for sure, I would agree with you on that point. But even more so, it comes down to even how our society is set up in the first place to allow different regions of crime. We can look at that crime, and it doesn't have to do with racism as much as it has to do with economy, education, how
Well,
we raise different groups of people in the United States, and
I mean,
segregate.
I've heard of people who go out and they commit a nonviolent crime because they're not violent people. They go out and shoplift or something just so they can get arrested,
Sure,
so they can get a meal and somewhere to sleep.
absolutely. If I was homeless, I would do the same thing, right? Makes sense to me.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
mean, what's up with that?
yeah, makes sense to me.
So, you know, there's a problem in our society, and it doesn't just have to do with the police, although the police are, don't get me wrong, the police are part of it.
Right.
You know, I'm not for defunding the police.
Me neither.
Some people are, but I'm not.
No.
Um, there are bad apples in the police department, and I'm with you on that one. But um, but I mean, we just got to do something. We got to do something about poverty, first of
Yep.
all, and then we got to do something about this three strikes law, because that's just plain ridiculous.
Yeah, the police are kind of like, I know as a female, you've probably never been into a strip club before, but in a strip club, there's a lot of strippers who were straight females who become lesbians because all they do all day long is see these males that come in that are just sex addicted and just want to give them money for sex or to watch sex. And in my opinion, police are the same way, in the effect that all they see all their lives are the dregs of humanity. They only see the negative of humanity, and it's very difficult to then separate humanity from the evil of humanity, or the crime, or what you consider to be the bad part of humanity. And that's why you have such high suicide rates amongst policemen, is because they actually went into that business to be good people, to actually do good in the community. And they see fellow policemen that go, you know what, I've been here for 5 years, and we're not making a dent in this community, and therefore you should probably like abuse drug dealers and take their drugs and money, and you should probably get away with this, and you should probably get away with that, because you're not really doing anything to help society. And that's systemic in our police systems. It literally is. It's a pass to abuse society because of the evils of society, and they get away with it because they're like, you know what, it's my word against you, you're a drug dealer, or it's my word against you, you're a prostitute. And they don't have the ability to change society from people being drug dealers and prostitutes. They're not on that level at all. They
Right.
just don't have that ability. They've entered a system where they think that they can help, but they really truly can't help. And so they have to fall into, I'm either going to protect my fellow policemen, no matter how corrupt they are, because I'm in line with them, or I'm going to have a moral outside of a policeman's mentality. And I would be willing to venture that that's more rare. It's more rare to do that. It's harder to do that, I would say. It would be simultaneous of being an atheist in a Christian church. Like you join the Christian church and you all have these same rules about how you discipline people. And that's the same thing for a policeman. You know, if you're the policeman that's not corrupt, if you're the policeman that's not that knows that everybody else is doing corrupt things because of society, and you're that one individual who doesn't do corrupt things, you're the atheist of the policeman society, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's
And
much harder. It's much harder.
yeah, and would we have ever gotten that conviction if it had not been for that video? Probably not.
Absolutely not. 100% not. 100% not. And in all honesty, watching the entire trial, it truly came down to one question. The one question is whether you believed that George Floyd, if not pinned down by the police officers, if not even handcuffed and all that, would have died anyway based on drugs that were in his system. That's really truly what you would have to argue. I mean, if you were a competent lawyer, that would be your strongest argument is this person's going to die because of the drugs in their system. And I think the videos was obviously shown that that would not be the case. Like, come on. I mean, how could you not argue that being on your face on the ground, even if you do have drugs in your system, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a professional police officer and you suspect this person has drugs in your system, you're aggravating that. You're
Exactly.
exacerbating. You're exacerbating it.
Why would you put your knee on a dude's neck if you
You're right.
that he's got methamphetamine in his system?
Exactly. You're exacerbating it. You're actually creating a more stressful environment based on that. And I would say the one, not defense, but knowing what I know about the whole video and everything, obviously George Floyd's argument of that he would have anxiety by staying in the police car is defunct because he obviously traveled in the car to the place, right? So
Right.
you don't have anxiety while you're traveling in the car and you're staying in the car. Maybe you can argue that I have anxiety because now you've arrested me and you're putting me
Right.
in a police car. You know, I have a heightened more anxiety. But even at that point, if you're a professional policeman that recognizes this, you could say, hey, this is an anxiety medical event, and maybe I should bring in an ambulance, right? Hey,
Exactly. Which he didn't.
right, let's bring in an ambulance. This guy is stressed out. He's having an anxiety attack. He's having a panic attack. Let's bring in an ambulance. Let's let him sit on the back of the ambulance and have people inspect him until he can calm down, and we back off and do not create the stressful environment. With all of that said, I mean, it's an obvious conviction against an officer who is going outside of the boundaries to really dehumanize a person by showing force. There was no reason to pull him out of the vehicle in the first place, none at all. You could have let that person stay inside the vehicle and let him go crazy, even if you're that incompetent at dealing with an anxiety attack. You know, go for it. You know, let him be inside the vehicle and smash things or whatever. But by pulling him out and then putting your weight on him is a show of force. It's dehumanization. And rightfully so, they judge this guy. And my biggest fear, honestly, is someone like Maxine Waters kind of tainted the whole environment, where they can now bring up an appeal and say that the jury was tainted. I think that's a big fear for me, is that there is a gap now to allow someone to come in and say, you know what? The jury had no choice but to do this. And in all honesty, if I was in the jury, I put myself in this place. If I was in the jury, I'd be fighting for that too. I'd be like, dude, come on. There's millions of people around the world right now, which we live in an online society, and they're going to look up your name as a juror and figure out that you were the person that let Derek Chauvin go. Fuck no. No
Yeah,
way. No way. No way that would that ever happen.
whoever the 12 people were going to be, they were going to pretty much, it was already a done deal to find Chauvin guilty because that video went viral. There's
Yeah.
like no way to get an unbiased jury anywhere
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's probably the problem with our judicial system is that someone now is a good lawyer who will now be appealing for Derek Chauvin will say what you and I just agreed on. And it will be hard to find anyone in America who has not seen that video and was not tainted by that fact. And unfortunately, that is a legal remedy to allow someone to have a mistrial, which is scary. Scary for us.
Yes and no, because well, I don't know about legality. I'm not a lawyer, but I will say, you know, you can tell. I mean, that dude had it. Chauvin had his knee on Floyd's neck for 12 minutes. There is no way that
Nine,
dude
yeah,
was
yeah,
getting
9 minutes.
up.
You
Huh?
know what? 9 minutes, but you know what?
9 minutes.
When every time I think about that, I like think about if I was the people, the witnesses right there, and every time I'm like, I would just want to like go shove Chauvin off of that dude, like even for a second, like run up and push his ass off. You know?
Yeah.
Sure. Would I get shot? Maybe.
Well, I
You
mean,
know?
we would like to think we would, but
Yeah.
we have this ingrained respect for the police.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Right.
if anything, his fellow officers should have done something.
I agree. No, I totally agree. But yeah, their fellow officers are trained to like follow, right? They're sheep.
Yeah. So anyway, I wasn't planning on coming live today, but when I heard that Chauvin had been found guilty, and I was even thinking about it, like what should I call this? Should I call this Chauvin found guilty? And I'm like, no, let's remember who the victim is.
Good job. Good job. So, Lisa, where are you from anyway? What state?
Um, I was born in Florida.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Moved to Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, back to Florida, back to Alabama, and now I'm in Oregon.
Oh, wow. Oregon. What?
Yeah, my dad's here,
Okay.
so yeah, I moved out here to be with him.
Where in Florida? Like, so where in Florida did you start growing up?
Tampa.
Okay, Tampa. Ooh, which I'm actually thinking about moving to, honestly. And I'm in California. So, but my I have half my family from California, half my family is from Alabama. So I actually spent a lot of time in Alabama. Spent time. Actually, I've traveled all over the South, so I'm pretty familiar with it. And the reason I ask is because I kind of heard that Southern accent in your voice,
Yeah,
and it's to me it seems it's much more difficult from someone who was born in the South to become an atheist or to become a liberal, for that matter.
right.
Being
And
being
I agree with you.
yeah, being
I
born in
mean,
the South.
you grow up in that culture. You
Yep,
know,
yep.
it's like you've got a church on every corner, literally.
Literally, yep, yeah, literally, yep.
I mean, people say that, and people who don't live in the South are just like, oh, that's just a turn of phrase.
No,
No, it is literally true.
it's literally true. Yeah, I mean,
Sometimes two churches per block.
yeah. Oh yeah, easily. I have gone to multiple southern states where all the churches are actually concentrated in one area of the town, and so on one street you'll drive by 5 or 10 churches within 30 seconds. You're just oh, there's the Presbyterian, there's the Southern Baptist, oh, there's even a Catholic here. but I found, the Catholics are a smaller denomination in the South. You get what's the society down there? It's for Catholics.
Oh, I don't know. The biggest denomination probably in the South would be the Baptists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of things, a big thing people don't know about Baptist is Baptist isn't just Baptist. It's kind
Right.
of like Pentecostal isn't just Pentecostal. You've got Missionary Baptist, you got Southern Baptist, you've got the NIFB, you've got Independent Fundamentalist Baptist. So there's a bunch of different Baptists, just like there's a bunch of different Pentecostals,
Right.
But
Right.
as a whole, I would say, just being in the South, that the Baptists are the biggest
I agree.
Demographic in the South.
So what were you one of those denominations for most of your life or any part of your life?
I grew up in the Independent Fundamentalist Baptist,
Okay.
and then I was Southern Baptist, and then I decided to go look at other denominations of
Sure.
Christianity. And I also read a bunch of other religious stuff like Buddhism and Wicca and
Absolutely.
even Scientology. I mean, I've read
Yep.
Dianetics. I
Yep.
don't necessarily agree with it. I think it's a bunch of shit, but I mean, I've read it, and you know, and then I joined the Mormon Church, the
Wow.
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints,
Wow.
and technically I'm still a Mormon, and I don't really see any reason to disassociate myself from that church. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me I got to take a pee break. Give me a second. I want to follow up on that cuz that's awesome. That's interesting to me. Hold on.
Well, I wasn't even planning on doing this today, and got somebody on here. Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to kind of redo my title a bit. Wartime. We pretending like the verdict was okay. Shameful. No. What would have been shameful is if the verdict had come back not guilty. There was no reason for Chauvin to use that kind of force on George Floyd. He was already on the ground, he was already handcuffed. And if you disagree with me, I don't care. You can go fuck yourself, because the verdict was fair and just, and he should spend the rest of his life in prison.
Oh, so War Tome was his argument saying that, I mean, I guess I would want to hear what he thought the verdict was supposed to be. Like, what should it have been?
Yeah, what should it have been, Wartime? I'll be right back. You can go ahead and talk, soldier.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, for me, if you're in a situation where you're dehumanizing people, even if you're arresting them, it doesn't matter if they're on drugs, if they're black, if they're white. If you are a professional in that field, and you should be the person that is mitigating the least harm of these individuals, even if they're creating harm to you, at what point should that harm be lethal? And I think this is probably the argument of all America right now. In all honesty, I'll even be honest with you. This last case with this 13-year-old who had a gun and he was running, but apparently he put his hands up and threw the gun at the same time. For me, in all honesty, that is a valid defense of the police. In all honesty, it is,
Yeah,
because
it is. Like
it
I,
is. It
like
is
I said,
because
there's a fine line between just enough force and too much force. And
yeah,
I do understand that the police walk that line every
yep,
day.
yep. I am not the liberal that goes, you know what, every black person that is killed by a police person is justified. What I'll say is it's not justified based on their history of any crimes that they're doing. It comes down to the exact instance of that crime. And this case, and I'm sorry, I apologize, can't remember the name of this 13-year-old who was recently killed, which is becoming like a national attention. But if a police officer is chasing after you and knows you have a gun in your hand, because he knew, right? He knew he had the gun in the hand. The 13-year-old obviously knew that by running with the gun in his hand, that he puts himself in a higher, different risk category. That police officer had less than a second to make a decision of whether his life was in danger or not.
Exactly.
Completely justified, in my opinion. And I know other liberals who are like, you know what, the police are evil and they're bad and they just kill black people, are going to see this and maybe clip it and go, you know what, you're wrong. You're wrong, soldier of science. And I'm going to say no, no. Every instance of crime, you have to put yourself in the perspective of the criminal and the police officer, and even more so in the perspective of the police officer who has to deal with his life or her life being affected in milliseconds. Even this case of Dante Wright, this case of Dante Wright, where you have the female cop mistakenly, which for sure is a career problem, that if you mistake your taser for a gun, you're going to get fired and probably should not be a cop anymore, and probably should go to jail because you mistaken that. But there has got to be a certain level of humanity where we go, this person is in a stressful environment every single day that has to make decisions of whether to save their lives and their partner's lives. And what that kind of situation shows, especially with Dante Wright, is, dude, Dante, if you didn't jump in the car and like try to take off after that, there probably would not be a heightened risk where the police were now like forced to even try to tase you in the first place. And I'm not saying that deserves his death at all. At all. It does not deserve his death. There was a mistake made, and the cop should go to jail for that mistake, for sure. But I'm saying that there is an argument of mitigation versus there's an argument of, should I run and try to survive when I know there's cops on me that are either going to use a taser or a gun? Like in all honesty, if you're if you're an African American, if you're a Black American in the United States, don't even risk the fact of getting tased versus the gun, because if there's not a video on you, it just might be the gun. And
Exactly.
so to me, you honestly have to, as a human being, you have to weigh those risk factors, whether you're a criminal or you're not a criminal, whether you're a police officer and you're enforcing that. Ultimately, the police officer is trying to make sure they go home every night. And ultimately, as a criminal, you want to go home at night, but if you're putting yourself at risk by just basically not being arrested, or trying to run, um, you know what? Be prepared for the risks that happen. Be prepared. Be prepared for the accident of a gun versus a taser. Be prepared for that. And if you're not smart. You're not a smart individual. My 2 cents.
Yeah. Um, I'm guessing War Tome left because I don't see any elaboration on that.
You know why Wartone left is because he totally agrees that he completely agrees that it's a situational event, basically.
Well, I told him if he didn't agree, he could fuck off. So that's part of why he did too. So I mean, I usually don't do stuff like that, but this was totally justified.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
and
no, absolutely, absolutely. There's no reason. And you know what? It's funny. I'm an atheist. After 40 years of being a Christian, I became an atheist, and
me too.
yeah, and I had a roommate who very liberal guy, but still a Christian, and we had two competing debates where, um, God, what was okay? So we both completely agreed that Trayvon Martin was unjustly killed. We both agreed that based on pragmatics, based on like who's this fucking dude trying to follow someone and pretend that they're a cop and they're not. You know, like this guy that like really invoked the situation in the first place, where everybody on the right like narrows it down to well Trayvon Martin came back and he was the first person to be physical here, and therefore George Martin or whatever, or George what was his name, Zimmerman, I don't remember his name.
Zimmerman.
Oh, okay. So yeah, George Zimmerman was justified in killing him because Trayvon Martin was the first to become physical. And I've always been like, you know what? No, I grew up in Los Angeles. I come from the old school. And if you're some dude following me in my neighborhood and you're chasing me and you don't have a uniform on, like automatically I'm thinking you're robbing me, right? And
Exactly.
so automatically I'm thinking you're a dude robbing me. And then if you catch up to me and I see you have a gun on your body, what's my choices? Either I'm going to sock your ass or I'm going to try to run. There really is no like two choices beyond that. So ultimately for me the logic comes down to that George Zimmerman completely caused that situation and therefore is responsible for Trayvon Martin's death. Um, uh,
Exactly.
Anybody that is in a court of law and why George Zimmerman got off is going to base it on, we don't really have evidence of the fact that George Zimmerman may have been defending himself because he got himself in a fight. And no, dude, you're the guy that pretended you were a cop and followed someone, and in their mind they're thinking you're about to rob them. I would sock your ass too. And you're lucky I didn't have a gun, because I would probably have shot your ass too as you're following me. And most people don't get this. So I guess the point I'm making is this roommate that I had, we had that agreement on that. But when it came to God damn, I'm gonna totally forget this other black kid that got shot by a cop. Um, Even before, I think it was before the Trayvon Martin.
Hmm.
But oh man, I'm sorry, I forgot.
There's been a
Yeah,
lot
I know. There's been
story.
there's been so many. Um,
Exactly, exactly. And this is what I'm saying. This has to stop. Not
oh
just
well,
for
well,
kids,
well.
but
Definitely,
black
it definitely
people
has
in
to stop. I
general.
guess. I guess the point that I'm getting to, is that people who are either on the left or on the right, they get into a tribe of, I'm either going to protect the policeman or I'm going to protect the human that is being shot or abused or taken advantage of. And I guess my point is, no, you have to take every freaking situation at face value. You have to really look at it at face value, and you can't come up with an opinion of this is a racist cop. No, this might have been a cop that had 1 second to decide whether it was his life or that person's life. Granted. And
Exactly. I mean, if
yep,
if
go ahead.
if there was a cop who had been called out, say, and somebody was robbing a store, and this cop shot him because he thought the guy was reaching for a gun, but he didn't know that the guy dropped the gun like way back when. Um, in that case, that cop is justified in
Yeah.
my eyes because that cop had no idea whether that dude was going for a gun or not.
He has no idea. I mean, and unless that 13-year-old kid just like hit the ground and laid flat and didn't move, to allow the police to come up on him. In that cop's mind, he was chasing a kid with a gun for the last minute. That's all that cop knows. He's
Right.
like, I am chasing someone with a gun right now, and if this kid turns around, I could be killed. And I think that's where we lose sight, in our society in America right now, is we view things in just two ways. We view
Yeah.
things as either police brutality, or we view it as you know what, we're for the police, and no matter
And
what they and no
I don't
matter
do
what
it
they
like
do,
that.
it's okay. Yeah, and we can't do that. We have to be able to break it apart. And so, back to your point of your whole video, is great that Derek Chauvin is arrested, because he freaking deserved it. He was a killer. He killed another human being, period. And we all saw it.
And they're saying 12 and a half years in prison. I'm like, why only 12 and a half?
It's
You know,
because it's not first degree murder, so they convicted him on second degree and third degree. And
I,
so, yep.
yes, I understand that, but it's just, it doesn't make any sense to me.
No, no,
That
no,
and,
absolutely.
and all the infractions, he shouldn't have been a cop to begin with.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many problems with police forces allowing other cops who have actually been fired because of things they've done on a police force, allowed to be hired in another town, another state, another city. So no,
Yeah.
there's huge problems. And like I said before, at probably the beginning when I first joined, is the talent pool that you're pulling of policemen. A lot of them comes from the military. A lot of them comes from um, people that didn't want to go to college to become a doctor. Some of them came, uh, honestly, people that want to help society, but the
Mhm.
majority is like militant people that honestly, they don't have the IQ to be a surgeon. They don't have an IQ to be a scientist. And I don't mean that derogatory. I don't mean that derogatory at all.
Right,
It's just
right,
it's just a product of our society. Like, you have to have a certain amount of people to police your society. And if you have a million people, you need a certain population to police that people. They're not all gonna be the people with 250 IQs doing that, because those people are making money somewhere else.
right,
And
right.
you're, but I do think that we need to go back to the chalkboard and say, should a third of our police force be psychologists who are dealing with mentally ill out on the street? There, or people who are not using force when they're approaching. What else can we do? We can create other avenues of using non-lethal weapons, which many other countries do. Many other countries use things that aren't going to automatically kill someone.
Right,
So um, you have to think of those things first before we just take life and say, you know what, life is not worth it. This area of society, they're drug dealers, they're rapists, they're murderers, and therefore we're going to presuppose that that's the person I've just now pulled over in my car, and therefore, if they do anything, I'm going to kill them. And we got to get out of that. Yep.
exactly, exactly. So I am so thankful that they did find this dude guilty. And I really do think he should have been found guilty of first degree murder, but I understand why he wasn't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think first degree murder has to do with premeditated, right? Like he knew he was coming up on this person and he was going to kill him.
Yes, but some states define it as if you know 2 minutes beforehand,
Mm,
that's premeditated. So
interesting.
I think it goes by state as to what's considered premeditated.
Yeah,
I could be wrong on
I
that.
no, no, I agree. I think you're right about that, but I think that this shows, like I talked about the Trayvon Martin case. I think this shows an example of that because I believe the Trayvon Martin case, they tried to convict it on a higher degree, which failed. Where in this case, they convicted it on a degree that they knew they would get a conviction, and if you
That makes sense to
it
charge
does
them on
it
something
does
they can get them on.
it does. It does. If they convicted this case purely on first degree, I think the risk of that would have been a higher risk of it not being convicted, in my opinion. So I think from a legal standpoint, it was probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, but I mean, legal and moral are two different things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because I've been going down this rabbit hole lately of what is moral as far as how long you should be in jail. Even, I mean, if you are in jail for 2 years, but you have been able to prove, and I'm not saying people can do this. I'm saying feasibly, like if you could change your position in 2 years of being remorseful and understanding that you were this person who is now no longer this person, should you be let go versus being in jail for 50 years based purely on the crime that you did, regardless of whether you rehabbed, for example.
Right.
So I mean I think that's the next future of psychology is figuring out individuals who can be rehabbed in a little amount of time versus a long amount of time. And I personally don't know any studies about that, but I think that there's probably examples of people who went to jail and in 2 years to rehab versus someone who's in jail for 6 years and they'll never be rehabbed. So
Yeah, and I think we should just get out of privatization of prisons altogether. That's just
absolutely,
a bad idea.
absolutely. I think the Biden administration is doing that, right? Didn't they create some laws against that?
I hope so.
I think they did. I think the private prison system is pretty much
I,
going
I
down.
I know they're dealing a lot with COVID right now. You know, he's trying to do a lot of things. He's got a lot on his plate. Got a lot of balls in the air right now.
Okay, Lisa. Well, I want to join for a little bit. This went a little bit longer than I expected, but thank you for letting me join.
You're welcome. You have a great day.
You too, Lisa.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, everyone. So I was not expecting that either. Thank you, Soldier of Science. And you know, all my social media links are in the description. And yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. It's great news. You know, some people might not think so, but we've got to we have got to have responsibility, especially for our police officers. And you know, and I understand that they walk that line every day between not enough force and too much force. And it has to be situational, like Soldier of Science said. It can't be one one size fits all. And so, at any rate, you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see how this turns out. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.